welcome to Tutala Mai, Our People, Your Stories. I'm Agnes Tupou. Today we explore the Pacific peoples who experience poverty within the welfare system. More than 22,000 Pacific people receive a main benefit, and our unemployment rate is over 9%. PMN journalist Paige Whaingaa spoke to Auckland Action Against Poverty community organiser Brooke Stanley-Powell about the lived experiences of the people she sees every day.
The lived realities day to day, it's a real struggle. People are stressed. They often come in here really highly stressed, anxious and worried about whether or not they're going to receive the support. And yeah, we feel like we're seeing an increase in need on the ground since COVID. So yeah, people come in here often in really low spirits. So we make sure that we provide a space that's really embracing of people, irrespective of their backgrounds.
So what changes would you like to see at Work and Income so they don't have to go through these experiences?
So we're really pushing for Work and Income to work from a high trust service delivery model, which is the model that they adopted last year when they were administering the COVID income relief payment and the wage subsidy for businesses. That's not the model that they typically work from. They actually work from a low trust model, where people are often scrutinised for what they've spent their money on. If people are trying to access further support, then they're often asked, well, do you have receipts? Can we see your bank statement? Can't you put away, if you knew that, for example, like if you knew that your warrant was coming up or your registration for your car, then you should have been putting away money, like you should have saved. Are you able to ask family? So all these different kind of questions that make people feel really ashamed, like more ashamed than when they first go in. It's often really dehumanizing for people to explain what they've spent their money on. And the fact that they don't get enough anyways, I think Work and Income really miss that.
Does the Work and Income welfare support help our people and meet the costs of living?
Yeah, the current benefit levels are below the poverty line. So anyone receiving a benefit in this country is actually living in hardship.
What is the most common entitlement that your clients don't know exists?
The main thing that we kind of get people coming in for is around food grants. So people are often told from Work and Income that there's a certain threshold and that if you've gone above that threshold, then you're not allowed to get any more food grants. That's not true. If you need a food grant every week, if you're in hardship every week, then you're allowed to ask for a food grant every week. Whatever it is that you need that from Work and Income, you should be able to access, because if they don't grant it to you and it puts you in further hardship, that's actually going against the law. So within the Social Security Act, case managers aren't allowed to make your situation worse. They're not allowed to increase further risk to yourself or your family or cause you more hardship.
And what is the most common tactics by Work and Income staff that your clients have, I guess, disclosed to you?
Yeah, it's mainly the mistreatment of people. Yeah, so people are often traumatised. They don't want to deal with work and income anymore, which makes it hard because they can't access support every week if they need it. Yeah, it's just making people feel even more powerless. And I think Work and Income aren't aware of like that power dynamic. People going in are already feeling powerless. They hold all the power in terms of being able to grant people support. But often the frameworks that which they work from don't allow case managers to do that, which makes it, yeah, it just causes further stress and hardship for people.
And do you think, just with the state of Work and Income, how it is right now, is this an example of, I guess, a disconnection for the power at the top and the people on the ground?
Yeah, I think it's kind of ironic that politicians are making decisions and saying, we're doing enough for people who are receiving benefits when they're not the ones receiving benefits. And so it kind of feels like institutional gaslighting. So yeah, I just want them to listen. Like, listen to people who, this is their lived experience. It's not your lived experience anymore. So why are you being so arrogant as to not take into consideration what people have been saying for ages? And that's the other thing. How long do you want us to talk about these things? Or like, how tragic do people's stories have to be before we decide, oh, we're going to change?
Carmel Sepuloni is our Minister for Social Development and oversees work and income. What message would you want to get across to her?
I just want her to, fight for us, really. Give some pushback within the Labour caucus about urgency in terms of providing livable incomes for everyone. I know that they've got a 3 to 5 year plan, but that's really not good enough, not for people on the ground. A day is long for people who are struggling in New Zealand, you know what I mean? Whereas people at the top, they think that they've got all the time in the world. And it's because they don't have to worry about, having to pay their rent, having to get their groceries, having to worry about school uniforms for their kids, things that a lot of us take for granted.
So Carmel Sepuloni is our Social Development Minister who oversees work and income. What would your message be to her, or what would you want to know from her?
Why aren't they introducing livable incomes tomorrow? What's the hold up within the government? Why aren't you being transformational like you said you would?
Now I'm joined with Minister for Social Development, Carmel Sepuloni. Malaupito hasi mea mai te Tutala Mai today. Firstly, Carmel, I want to ask, what are the challenges that you saw that were highlighted in the video by Brooke that stood out for you?
A number of challenges that Brooke has raised, but many of the challenges that our people, Pacific people and others have faced in the welfare system for decades are things that we have been actively responding to for the last 3 years. And I'm really proud of some of the significant changes that we have made to ensure that our welfare system does uphold the dignity of people and that they are treated with respect, and the changes that we've made to improve income adequacy of the welfare system. I guess the thing I always acknowledge is that there's more to do, and as a government we're committed to doing that.
You talk about the more to do, which obviously from the 1st of April, we had benefits rise with $25. I want to give you a bit of a scenario here. Benefits, an average benefit from work and income is around about $331, right? And then you can get accommodation supplement. If you add that, you're looking at about maybe $200, so $531. If you're paying rent, which is $475, that leaves you with about $56. Last night, I went online, I went to Pack and Save, and I decided to do a bit of a shop because basic shopping is your bread, your milk, your eggs, for a majority of people out there. That is the money that is already spent. That came to $55.75. So when you look at the $25, right, what are you thinking that is actually going to eliminate or even alleviate and help our people out of poverty?
It was never going to be enough by itself, but what we have to keep in mind too is that there have been other changes in the welfare system that have supported with people having more money in their pocket. Things like the introduction of the winter energy payment, the Best Start payment for people that have new babies, repealing some of the sanctions, like for instance the Section 192, whereby if you didn't name the other parent, then you'd automatically lose money. That's no longer in place. So it's not one change. And we also have to keep in mind too that there's working for families, for those that do have children, on top of the benefit payment and supplementary supports like accommodation supplement. Now, I'm not trying to say that that those changes add up to the full entire sum of what needs to be done. But they're pretty significant changes for 3 years, and we want to continue to make changes.
But can you understand, though, the stress that puts on majority of our people, especially our Māori Pasifika communities? You say that the $25 will make a significant impact on their lives.
Well,
do you stand by that, though?
Every dollar matters, when you're on a benefit. And certainly some of the correspondence I received was that people needed more, but that every dollar did matter. It made the difference to what they could afford and that we could not. I'm not saying that we've done everything that needs to be done, and I do understand the lived reality of our people who are on benefits and are in the welfare system, which is why I got into this job in the first place, was to support and to make life a little bit fairer for those families. But it's a work in progress, and we need to continue to do that work.
We've seen just recently, Health Minister Andrew Little announced one of the biggest shake-ups, right, in the health system. Is that what needs actually to be done with Work and Income and the Ministry of Social Development? We've even had the New Zealand Children's Commissioner say the government needs to be bold and courageous and not just give $25. These small increments, we need to have, I would say, an overhaul.
Yeah. Well, Agnes, I'm going to say that the overhaul is certainly in progress. I'm going to, list off, it is the winter energy payment, it is the Best Start payment, it's been the changes to working for families so that more people can access it and they can access more. It's been the repeal of that sanction that penalised sole parents. It has been the increase to benefits. It's the indexation of benefits to wages. It's the change in culture at MSD as well. The fact that we do have a charter about our relationship and how we treat people. It's about providing more information in the languages that our people speak, which we certainly do as well. It's a change to the environment so that it's more friendly, so that when kids go in, they actually have a space in there that keeps them entertained, as opposed to just sitting there sadly waiting for their parents to get through these meetings.
But see, that's the thing though, when you can change the environment though, you can change the setting, the reception can look beautiful, but what we've heard is that there's a toxic culture there from MSD to when people walk in and say, hey, I don't feel welcomed here. What is it that you really need to change? Is probably more the people, your case managers.
Well, for our Pacific community, 20% of the case managers, the frontline staff, are Pacific, and in Auckland that's even higher. And what my MSD staff say to me, including the union delegates that I've met with, many of them were Pacific, is that they're very close to the communities that they're working in, that there's very little that divides them between themselves and the people across the table. And they do care. And so I've been working with them to make sure that that care is reflected in the way that we work with our clients. I think there's been a massive improvement. I wouldn't say it's perfect. There are certainly instances where decisions or interactions are far from what my expectations would be, but I think fewer and far between compared to what it was when we took over 3 years ago.
I would say compared to what I've seen recently, because I have gone many a times as a person to go and ask for that help. And I speak probably on behalf of a lot of people who walk in there who already are feeling lesser than, right? And then when they're coming to ask for food grants and then to be declined, Minister, we're trying to get to a place where people shouldn't be constantly coming in for a food grant every week.
No,
where's the change there?
That's where income adequacy is important. And, I want to point out that the number of Pacific people on benefit is relative to our population, but because many of our Pacific community are earn low incomes, then sometimes it's the supplementary supports that they access. The number of food grants have gone up, and a big part of that is the fact that we're giving people access to what they're entitled to, less declines than what there had been previously. There still is a limit on those. However, discretion can be used in cases where there is a case for actually being able to approve that beyond what the limits are for food grants. And so, Agnes, it's not perfect, but I think there have been significant improvements. One other thing I'll say is I've been very clear about the need to have a very transparent complaints process because, for yourself or anyone, if you have an interaction that doesn't reflect the type of respect that we expect MSD to be demonstrating towards clients, then we want our clients to know how to make a complaint. And so that process has been improved. And that will inform future changes and also make sure that the ministry and our staff are held to account.
Minister, you've reported that more than 30,000 people have actually moved off the benefit and into work with the first 3 months of 2021. Can you maybe break down then what are those jobs? And I'm trying to understand, are they jobs that will actually give our clients or give the clients of MSD a secure tenure?
Yeah, one of the biggest growth areas has been construction. The government has very deliberately invested in infrastructure and housing. And so there are a large number of jobs there now. But alongside the investment in infrastructure and housing has also been the investment into opportunities to train and upskill. And so programs like Mana and Mahi, the Apprenticeship Boost, He Pau Tamarangatahi, all of those programs are about making sure that people have the skills to get into what we do deem as sustainable work, because things like construction are not going to end. They're going to continue. We've seen a big increase in the number of women taking up the apprenticeship opportunities in those sectors. And I think that that's a real opportunity. Of course, there's been a decline in some areas, retail, hospitality, tourism, because of COVID. Some of those are on the climb back up in some areas, but it has meant that some people have had to pivot and change their direction and go towards workforces that are more sustainable.
Okay, now let's switch it up. In regards to the processes that work and income work along, we have an ever-changing economy, but the recent Public Service Commission data states that only 4% of all policy analysts and 5% of all government managers are Pacific. If you take us who come into there and we want to see a Pacific face, because you say it's better to talk to someone that probably understands you a little bit more. Yeah, but you know, is that the reason maybe behind the policy of decision of maintaining those job seekers who go and just get low-paid jobs, though?
Yeah, well, I think that there is underrepresentation of Pacific people in the public sector at the higher level. I'd fully acknowledge that, and that's something that we need to work on. In MSD, across our government agency, we've probably got one of the largest numbers of Pacific people working for us. If we look around the country, you know, at least one regional commissioner in Wellington, and I think there may be more, but we want to continue to work on that too. And I do think it has an influence on policy settings and how well served our people are. And so this is something that we need to continue to keep an eye on.
And again, looking ahead to the budget, of course, is coming up very soon. How many, though, of those Pacific people from work and income give you or talk to you in regards to you being able to have those discussions at Cabinet to be able to better our outcomes for our Pacific people?
I feel very fortunate to be at Cabinet, not just by myself, but with other Pacific colleagues as well. And so we're in the best place that we've ever been with regards to Pacific representation at the Cabinet table or across ministers in general. And I can say hand on heart that our voice is listened to. This is what we should hope for moving forward for any government, whichever colour is in. That representation continues. Can we address every challenge as quickly as we would like to? Unfortunately, no, but I don't think any minister with any portfolio would say that that would be the case. But it does make a difference. You know, I can't talk about the conversations that we have at the Cabinet table, but it's not just us. Every other minister understands the need to actually take into consideration the diversity of our communities and what any policies mean for those communities.
We have a focus area that is to lift the Pacific and Māori people with their income, skills and opportunities. I want to ask though, how many Pacific people from your agency though provide you advice that informs your contribution to the budget discussions at Cabinet?
Gosh, so many. And can I just say too that one of the first things we did was set up a Pacific advisory group, and I don't think MSD had one since 2003. And they were the ones that came together to formulate the strategy for MSD for MSD on how we respond to the needs of Pacific people more appropriately. You know, with that particular group, they're not in MSD, and I think it's really important that we get external advice from people who work across the community sector and with our people to give us advice on how we can do things better, so we've certainly had that.
Taking back to Brooke, she spoke on the video in regards to livable incomes. I really want to ask you, Minister, why aren't you introducing livable incomes, what she says, tomorrow?
Well, you know, as I said, there have been significant changes. We've still got to do more. I can't tell you over the course of the next term when those changes will be made, but it was a guarantee that we had made in our manifesto that we would address income adequacy in the welfare system. Now, let's keep in mind that for our people, it's not just about income adequacy in the welfare system. As I said, many are actually working but on low incomes. So doing things like lifting the minimum wage matter to our people, giving them pathways to upskill and train so that they can get into better paid work, that matters for our people. And creating jobs as well as supporting Pacific people to get into jobs, because the vast majority of our Pacific people want to work, is important. And so the investment too that we've put into employment and upskilling and training is important for our Pacific community.
But if a livable income could be achieved, you as the Minister of Social Development, would you advocate for a livable income? If so, when?
I'm certainly committed to responding to the Welfare Expert Advisory Group's report and their recommendations around what we need to do in the income adequacy space. Whether or not that happens this year, next year, the year after, I can't tell you that right now, but I'm certainly committed to doing that, as well as supporting families better who actually are in work but struggling because they're on low incomes.
Look, as a Pacific person, Carmel, what are your aspirations though for MSD and its efficacy really?
My aspirations for MSD are that we have a welfare system that treats people with respect, that upholds their dignity, that is mana enhancing rather than, kind of mana diminishing. Also that we become a place that, yes, is about providing the valuable income support and giving people access to any income support that they might be eligible for, but that equally works with individuals and whānau to support them to realise their potential. And if that's to get into a certain type of job but they need support with a licence or with upskilling and training, then that's what we need to do. I've been on a benefit too, Agnes, and I always had the intention of working. And I hated the fact that when I was on benefit, I had a case manager who had no faith in me and my ability to be able to upskill and train and go into meaningful work. And our people need that support as well.
You've been on the benefit before, then you were one of the best advocates then for our people. Although again, we still see the struggle. We are wanting to see, the push is that we don't want to just alleviate poverty, we actually want to eliminate it. What then are the issues that what are the processes or things that you are actually going to do?
When the call comes to eliminate poverty, no one would disagree with that. The thing that has to be thought through carefully, which is what we're doing as a government, is the steps you have to take to address the very complex challenges that whānau face, as well as to address the barriers for whānau, as well as address the income adequacy issues. So it's not a matter of just saying we want to eliminate poverty. It's about saying we want to make sure New Zealand families and individuals are better off. And so what do we need to do that? And so we're taking all the steps to do that. And understand that it's more complex than just making changes to the welfare system.
I get it, it's complex, but we're looking at children who are actually suffering. There's children poverty. In a well-developed country, we should not be seeing this type of poverty though.
We'd all agree with that. But I was just in Rotorua yesterday, and when I'm talking to my staff and to other people across the community, that investment into mental health. How do we support the investment into family and sexual violence when you've got children in homes with mothers who are trying to escape from violent situations and need the support to actually be able to move themselves and their family on is important.
But do you find then those small incremental, the $25 increase on benefits, is that really going to pull our people out of poverty? That's the main question I really want to ask.
Every step we take is about improving income adequacy, but if we only did that, we didn't put any money into housing, we didn't put any money into mental health, we didn't put any money into family and sexual violence, then how much better off would these families be as well? Because they're facing challenges that are much more complex than just what they're facing in the welfare system. All needs to be done at the same time, which is what you would see us as a government committed to doing.
So then we will see a better outcome in regards to the culture at work and income to help our people.
As we said, Agnes, I think there have been significant changes, and honestly, if you've come across something that's different from that, then you put that through to me, because I say this to people all the time. We will follow up where complaints are made to ensure that the culture is reflective of what we have said we are doing. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Minister of Social Development, Carmel Sepuloni, for joining us today on Tutala Mai. Malo.
Malo lava.
We want to hear your views, so join the conversation at our PMN News Facebook and Twitter pages. For more on our news and our stories, please head to pmnnews.co.nz. Until next time, I'm Agnes Tupou, Tutala Mai.